Captain Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Herald of Terra, staring at the view screen with her arms crossed. The sight before her was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. 37 ships hung in the darkness beyond Earth's moon, each one larger than any vessel humans had ever built. They were sleek and elegant, their hulls covered in patterns that seemed to shift and glow with inner light. These were the ships of the Valorian Collective, and they had come with an offer. The communications officer turned to Jiwan with wide eyes. "Captain Ambassador Velcris is requesting to speak with you again." Jiwan nodded. "Put him through." Ah! The view screen shifted to show the alien ambassador. Velcris was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. His face was hard to read, but his voice was smooth and friendly. "Captain Jiwan, have you had time to consider our proposal?" "I'm just a ship captain, Ambassador," Jiwan replied. "This decision is far above my rank. President Heian and the United Earth Council are discussing your offer right now." Velcris made a gesture that might have been a smile. "Of course. But you are here, and you see our fleet. You understand what we are offering? Protection? Knowledge? Partnership? Your species has only just begun to explore the stars, and already you face dangers you cannot imagine. The galaxy is not kind to those who walk alone." Guan had heard this speech twice already. The Valorians had arrived 3 days ago with their impressive fleet and their generous words. They spoke of friendship between species of humanity, joining a great civilization that spanned hundreds of worlds. They offered technology that would advance Earth by centuries. They promised military protection from threats humanity didn't even know existed yet. All they asked in return was an alliance. It sounded too good to be true. Guan's instincts told her that when something sounded too good to be true, it usually was. "We appreciate your patience," she said carefully. "Humanity needs time to understand what you're offering." "Time," Velcris said, and something in his tone made Jiwan uneasy. "Yes, of course. But do not take too long, Captain. The galaxy moves quickly, and opportunities do not wait forever." The transmission ended. Guan turned to her first officer, a young woman named Mira, who had been listening to the entire exchange. "What do you think?" Mira hesitated. "Permission to speak freely, Captain?" "Always. I think they're hiding something. I've been going through the data packets they sent us, reading about the Valorian Collective and their allies. Every species they list as an ally joined them in the last 100 years. Before that, they were independent civilizations. Now they all seem to follow Valorian leadership in everything." Guan felt a chill run down her spine. "Keep digging. I want to know everything about these allies of theirs." Down on Earth, President Heian sat in the emergency session of the United Earth Council. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from every nation and every major colony humanity had established. The debate had been going on for hours, and tempers were running high. "We cannot ignore this opportunity," Ambassador Yunji shouted, slamming her hand on her desk. "The Valorians are offering us a place among the stars. They're offering to protect us. Do you know what's out there? We've barely explored 20 light years from Earth. There could be hostile species. Pirates, disasters, we can't even imagine. The Valorians can help us." Admiral Deho stood up slowly. He was an old man with gray hair and sharp eyes. "They can help us," he said quietly, "or they can control us. We know nothing about these Valorians, except what they've told us. They show up with a massive fleet and offer us everything we could want. Why, what do they gain from this?" "Partnership," Yunji insisted. "They gain a partner, an ally. We're not children, Admiral. We can negotiate terms that protect our interests, can we?" General Junho spoke up from across the chamber. "I've been reading the reports from our intelligence services. Every single species that allied with the Valorians gave them access to their military structures, their resource management, their governmental systems. That's not partnership. That's submission with a friendly face." President Heian raised her hand for silence. "We need more information before we can make this decision. I'm authorizing a full intelligence operation. I want to know everything about the Valorian Collective, their allies and their rivals. We don't make a decision this important based on a sales pitch. The council murmured in agreement, but Yoonji looked frustrated. Every day we delay is a day we could be advancing, learning, growing stronger, or becoming weaker, Daeho replied. True strength comes from standing on your own feet, not leaning on someone else. While Earth debated, the galaxy watched. In the dark spaces between stars, ships from other civilizations monitored the situation carefully. The Kryn Dominion had 3 stealth vessels positioned near Earth's outer colonies. The Solvath Federation had observers embedded in human society, watching and waiting. A dozen smaller species tracked the news with intense interest. Everyone wanted to know what humanity would choose. On a Kryn warship far from Earth, Commander Thexus studied the reports coming in from their agents. The Kryn were different from the Valorians in every way. Where the Valorians were smooth and diplomatic, the Kryn were blunt and practical. They believed in power and respected strength. The humans are hesitating, Thexus said to his second-in-command. Good. That shows intelligence. Species that jump at the Valorian offer usually regret it later. Should we make contact? His officer asked. Yet. Let them investigate. Let them discover the truth on their own. If they're as clever as I think they are, they'll start asking the right questions soon. Back on the Herald of Terra, Mira worked through the night. She pulled up records of Valorian allies, cross-referencing them with what little information humanity had gathered from other sources. The pattern became clearer with each hour. The Teclan species had been independent explorers before joining the Valorians 50 years ago. Now their ships flew under Valorian command. The Morsiv civilization had been renowned scientists and artists. After becoming Valorian allies, their research facilities were integrated into the Valorian Science Ministry. The Quilnucks had been fierce warriors protecting their home system. Within a decade of alliance, their entire military served as auxiliary forces for Valorian expansion. Every species followed the same path. Alliance, integration, absorption. The process took decades, but the end result was always the same. The allies weren't partners. They were parts of a greater whole. Losing their independence, piece by piece, Mira compiled her findings into a report and sent it directly to Captain Jiwan and President Hyun. She marked it urgent and classified. When Jiwan read the report, she immediately called an emergency meeting with Earth's senior leadership. President Hu Yen appeared on the secure channel along with Admiral Daeho and several key council members. This changes everything, Hu Shen said after reviewing Mira's data. If this pattern is accurate, an alliance with the Valorians isn't a partnership. It's a slow surrender. We need to verify this information, Admiral Daeho said. We need to talk to these species directly, ask them about their experience with the Valorians, and we need to understand our other options, Gunho added. The Valorians aren't the only power in the galaxy. What about the Kryn Dominion? The Solvath Federation? Are they any different? Giwan spoke up. With respect, President, I think we're asking the wrong question. It doesn't matter if the other powers are different. What matters is what humanity wants for itself. Do we want to be junior partners in someone else's empire? Or do we want to walk our own path, even if it's harder? The room fell silent. Everyone knew Jiwan was right, but the weight of that truth was heavy. The easy path was tempting. Accept the alliance, gain technology and protection. Let someone else handle the dangers of the galaxy. But the hard path, the independent path, that was the one that would let humanity remain truly human. President Heian looked at each face on the screen. We need more time and more information. Captain Juwan, I want you to open discrete channels with other species. Find out what they think of the Valorians. Admiral Daeho, start preparing contingency plans for every possible scenario. We're going to need them. As the meeting ended, Jiwan looked out at the Valorian fleet still hanging in space near Earth's moon. They looked beautiful and powerful, but now she saw them differently. They weren't saviors offering help. They were predators offering bait. Humanity had a choice to make, and the whole galaxy was watching to see what they would decide. Commander Taiyang didn't like the neutral station. It was a massive structure floating in empty space between territories. a place where species from across the galaxy came to trade and meet without the complications of politics. The station had no loyalty to anyone, which made it perfect for secret meetings. It also made it dangerous. He walked through the crowded corridors, passing dozens of alien species he'd never seen before. Some were tall and insect-like, others looked like walking plants, and a few were so strange he couldn't even describe them properly. His hand stayed near his sidearm, and his 2 security officers followed close behind. The message had come through encrypted channels 3 days ago. Someone from the Kryn Dominion wanted to talk about the Valorians. President Hayun had authorized the meeting, but everyone knew it was risky. The Kryn were one of the 3 major powers in the galaxy, and they had their own agenda. The meeting place was a small private room in the station's diplomatic quarter. Taiyang entered carefully, found himself face to face with a Kryn for the first time in his life. The alien was shorter than him, but powerfully built. With thick armor-like skin and 4 eyes that seemed to look in different directions at once, 2 of those eyes fixed on Taiyang as the Kryn spoke through a translator device. Commander Taiyang, I am Thexus. Thank you for coming. Your message said you had information about the Valorians, Taiyang said, skipping the pleasantries. Why would the Kryn Dominion help humanity? Thexus made a sound that might have been laughter. Direct. I like that. Your species is blunt like ours. The Valorians are smooth talkers, always using pretty words to hide ugly truths. The Kryn leaned forward. We don't want to help humanity out of kindness. We want you to understand what you're getting into before you make a choice that you'll regret. So tell me. Thesis activated a holographic display. Images of different alien species appeared, along with data in languages Taiyang couldn't read. These are the Valorian allies. All of them joined the collective in the last century. Before that, they were independent civilizations with their own governments, their own militaries, their own dreams. And now, Taiyang asked, though he already suspected the answer. They are extensions of the Valorian state. Their ships answer to Valorian admirals. Their resources flow to Valorian worlds. Their young people grow up learning that the Valorian way is the only way. It happens slowly over generations, but the end result is always the same. Taiyang studied the images. Why? What do the Valorians gain from this? Power, Thexius said simply. The Valorian collective is overextended. They control hundreds of systems, but their core population is small. They need workers, soldiers, resources. So they recruit allies with promises of protection and technology. Those allies gradually become dependent on Valorian systems, Valorian trade, Valorian military support. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late to break free, and humanity is next on their list. Yes, your species appeared in galactic affairs at an interesting time. The Valorians are in competition with the Kryn Dominion and the Solvath Federation. Whoever gains humanity as an ally gains a strategic position near valuable territories. The Valorians moved first, but they won't be the last to make you an offer. Taiyang felt his stomach tighten. You're going to make an offer too, aren't you? Thexus's 4 eyes all focused on him at once. But unlike the Valorians, we are honest about what we want. The Kryn Dominion believes in strength and clear hierarchies. We would offer humanity protection in exchange for being a buffer state between us and the Valorians. You would maintain your independence in internal matters. But your military would coordinate with ours. That still sounds like we'd be giving up our freedom. Less freedom than the Valorian offer, but more security, Thexus admitted. We don't pretend to be equal partners with species weaker than us, but we also don't absorb them. Buffer states in Kryn territory have remained independent for centuries. We need them to be strong enough to be useful, so we don't drain their resources. Taiyang stood up. I'll deliver your message to President Heian, but I'll tell you now. I don't think humanity is interested in being anyone's buffer state. Then what will you be? Thexus asked. The galaxy is divided among the great powers. There's little room for true independence. We'll find room, Taiyang said, and left the meeting. While Taiyang was meeting with the Kryn, Mira continued her investigation back on Earth. She'd been given access to every piece of intelligence. Humanity had gathered about galactic civilization. and she was finding patterns that worried her. The Valorian Collective wasn't the only empire that absorbed its allies. The Kryn Dominion maintained buffer states, but those states had little real power. The Solveth Federation claimed to be a confederation of equals, but the deeper Myra dug, the more she found that Solveth culture and Solveth economic systems dominated their partners. Every major power operated the same way. They offered protection and support, then slowly took control. Some were more aggressive about it than others, but the end result was similar. Small species became parts of larger empires, losing their unique identities over time. Mira wrote another report. It's one even more disturbing than the first. She sent it to Captain Jiwan with a note attached. "We can't trust any of them." Jiwan read the report in her quarters aboard the Herald of Terra. She sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what it meant. Humanity had been so excited when they made first contact with alien civilizations 5 years ago. They dreamed of joining a community of species, sharing knowledge and exploring the universe together. But the reality was different. The galaxy wasn't a community. It was a collection of empires, each one trying to expand its power and influence. Species that couldn't protect themselves got absorbed by those that could. It was like human history, Jiwan thought. The strong dominated the weak, and pretty words were used to justify it. Her communication console beeped. President Hayun was calling. "Captain, we've received another message," Hayun said. She looked tired. "This one is from the Solveth Federation. What do they want?" "They want to offer us an alternative to the Valorians. They're calling it a confederation of independent species. Each member maintains full sovereignty while cooperating on defense and trade." Guan felt a flicker of hope. "That sounds better than what we've heard so far." "It does," Yan agreed. "But Commander Taiyang just returned from his meeting with the Kryn, and their intelligence suggests the Solvath Federation isn't as equal as they claim. The Solvath species controls the Confederation's military command and most of the economic systems. Their partners have independence in name, but not much in practice." The hope faded. "So all 3 major powers want the same thing? They just dress it up differently." "That's what it looks like. We're calling an emergency session of the Council. Every faction will present their recommendations, and then we'll have to make a choice." After the call ended, Jiwon walked to the observation deck. She could see Earth in the distance, a blue and white sphere that held everything humanity had ever known. Out there in the darkness were hundreds of civilizations, thousands of worlds, endless possibilities, but also endless dangers. What did humanity want? That was the question no one could answer. Some people wanted safety, even if it meant accepting someone else's protection. Others wanted independence, even if it meant facing the galaxy alone. Both sides had good reasons for their beliefs. G1 thought about her own family. Her father had fought in the colony wars. Back when humanity's biggest conflict was between Earth and Mars, he'd always told her that freedom was worth fighting for, even when the fight seemed impossible. Her sister was a scientist who dreamed of studying alien technology and learning from more advanced civilizations. She believed cooperation was humanity's path to survival. They were both right in their own ways, and both wrong. A message came through on Giwan's private channel. It was from Mira, marked urgent. "Captain, I found something. There's a 4th option we haven't considered." Juan immediately called her back. "What 4th option?" "I've been researching independent species in the galaxy. Most of them got absorbed by the major powers, but not all of them. There's a group called the Free Accord. It's a loose coalition of smaller species that have maintained their independence by refusing to join any of the major powers. They're not well known because they keep a low profile. How do they survive? By making themselves too expensive to conquer. They share military technology and intelligence with each other. If any major power attacks one of them, they all respond together. It's not enough to defeat the empires, but it's enough to make the cost of conquest too high to be worth it." Guan felt her pulse quicken. "Can we contact them?" "I already did. They're willing to meet with us. They've been watching humanity for years, waiting to see if we'd accept one of the Empire offers or look for another path." "Set up the meeting. And Mira, this stays between us for now. I need to verify this before we bring it to the President." "Understood, Captain. What? Guan looked out at the stars again. Maybe there was a fourth path after all. Maybe humanity didn't have to choose between the Valorians, the Kryn, or the Solvoth. Maybe there was a way to remain truly independent, to walk among the stars without bowing to anyone. But it would be dangerous. The Free Accords survived by staying small and hidden. If humanity joined them, it would mean rejecting all three major powers. That would make enemies. Powerful enemies. Still, Guan thought. Better to have powerful enemies than powerful masters. She sent a message to President Hain requesting a private meeting. It was time to tell Earth's leadership about the fourth option, the one the empires didn't want humanity to know about. The decision ahead would be the most important in human history. And Jiwan wanted to make sure they knew all their choices before they made it. The United Earth. Council chamber had never been so full. Every seat was occupied, and the gallery above held hundreds of observers from across Earth and its colonies. The news networks broadcast the session live to billions of people. Everyone knew that today's debate would determine humanity's future among the stars. President Heian stood at the central podium, her face calm, but her eyes showing the weight of responsibility. We have gathered here to make the most important decision in human history. Three major galactic powers have offered us different paths forward. We also have a fourth option that has recently come to light. Today, representatives from each perspective will present their case. Then we will vote. She gestured to Ambassador Yunji. The floor is yours. Yunji walked to the speaker's platform with confident steps. She was young for an ambassador, but she had a gift for persuasive speech. Members of the Council, people of Earth, I stand before you to advocate for accepting the Valorian Alliance. I know there are concerns. I've read the intelligence reports. But I ask you to consider our reality. She activated a holographic display showing human settlements in space. We have colonies on 12 worlds. Our furthest outpost is 23 light-years from Earth. That's nothing. The galaxy is vast and we are tiny. Our most powerful warship couldn't defeat a single Valorian escort vessel. We have technology that would have seemed like magic to our ancestors a century ago, but compared to galactic standards, we're primitives. The display shifted to show images of alien threats. There are dangers out there we can't handle alone. Pirates who raid colony ships, hostile species that see our expansion as a threat, cosmic phenomena that could destroy our settlements without warning. The Valorians offer us protection from all of this, but at what cost? Someone shouted from the gallery, then raised her hand. Let me finish. Yes, the Valorians want something in return. They want access to our resources and our military cooperation. They want influence over our decisions. But we can negotiate terms that protect our core interests. We can maintain our government, our culture, our identity. We don't have to give up everything to gain their protection. She looked directly at the camera broadcasting to the world. Think about what we could learn from them. Medical technology that could eliminate disease. Energy systems that could end poverty. Faster-than-light travel that would let us explore the entire galaxy. The Valorians are offering us a shortcut to becoming a truly advanced civilization. Can we really afford to turn that down out of pride? General Junho stood up as Yunji finished. He walked to the platform with the steady gait of a career soldier. Where Yunji had been passionate, Yunho was calm and measured. Ambassador Yunji makes compelling points, he began. But she asks the wrong question. She asks if we can afford to turn down the Valorian offer. I ask if we can afford to accept it. He pulled up different data on the holographic display. Intelligence reports show that every species that allied with the Valorians lost its independence within 50 years. Not through conquest, but through integration. First, they adopt Valorian military protocols because they need to coordinate defenses. Then they adopt Valorian trade standards because it makes commerce easier. Then Valorian laws, Valorian education systems, Valorian values. Junho's voice hardened. Within 2 generations, those species' children no longer remember what it meant to be independent. They think of themselves as Valorian first and their original species second. That's not alliance. That's cultural extinction with a smile. He changed the display to show the Seleth Federation. The Solveth offer us a better path. They propose a true confederation where each species maintains sovereignty while cooperating on common challenges. Yes, they have more influence than other members because they're the largest and most powerful. But they don't demand integration. They don't erase identities. What about the intelligence reports on the Selvoth? Admiral Deho called out. Don't they control the Confederation's military and economy? They have the largest military and economy, Junho corrected. That's different from controlling them. The Solveth Federation has rules that prevent any single member from dominating the others. It's not perfect, but it's far better than what the Valorians offer. We would maintain our government, our military structure, and our right to make our own decisions. We would gain allies without becoming subjects. He paused, letting his words sink in. I know the Selvoth path is riskier. We would have less immediate protection than the Valorian alliance offers. But we would keep our freedom, and that's worth the risk. Admiral Deho approached the platform next. He was the oldest person in the chamber, a veteran of humanity's first conflicts in space. His hair was completely gray, and he walked with a slight limp from an old injury, but his voice was strong. I've listened to both previous speakers, and I respect their perspectives. But I disagree with both of them. He looked around the chamber. Ambassador Yunji is right that we're weak compared to galactic powers. General Junho is right that we need to maintain our independence. But both of them assume we need help from someone else. I say we need help from ourselves. He activated his own display, showing projections of human industrial capacity. We have 12 colonies, dozens of orbital facilities, mining operations on hundreds of asteroids. Our industrial base is growing exponentially. In 10 years, we could triple our fleet size. In 20 years, we could match the military strength of some smaller galactic powers. In 50 years, we could be strong enough that no one would dare threaten us. 50 years is a long time to be vulnerable, Yanji objected. Yes, it is, Deho agreed. But consider the alternative. If we accept anyone's alliance now, we lock ourselves into their sphere of influence. We give up our chance to become truly independent. We become, at best, a junior partner in someone else's empire. He turned to face the gallery and the cameras. I propose that we reject all alliances. We tell the Valorians, the Kryn, and the Solvoth that humanity appreciates their offers, but chooses to walk its own path. We focus everything we have on building our strength. We invest in shipyards, weapon development, defensive stations. We make it clear that any species that attacks humanity will pay a price too high to accept. That's madness, someone in the council shouted. We'd be painting a target on ourselves. We already have a target on ourselves, Deho shot back. Every major power is watching us, waiting to see which side will join. If we join anyone, their rivals become our enemies. At least my way, we only have enemies we choose for ourselves. President Heian raised her hand for quiet. Thank you, Admiral. Now we will hear about the fourth option. Captain Juan, please present your findings on the free accord. Juan had been sitting quietly, preparing her thoughts. She walked to the platform, feeling the weight of every eye in the chamber. This was the option no one had considered until a few days ago, and she knew it would be the hardest sell. The Free Accord is a coalition of 17 independent species, she began. Most people in the galaxy have never heard of them because they maintain a very low profile. They don't have the size or power of the major empires. What they have is cooperation and determination. She showed images of Free Accord species and their territories. Each member of the Free Accord maintains complete sovereignty. They have their own governments, their own militaries, their own cultures. What they share is a mutual defense, pact, and a technology exchange program. If any major power attacks one member, all the others respond. This makes the cost of conquering any single member too high. How have they survived this long? General Junho asked, with genuine curiosity. Up by being strategic? The Free Accord species occupy territories that are valuable but not critical to the major powers. They maintain strict neutrality in conflicts between empires. They don't expand aggressively or threaten anyone's interests. They're too strong to attack easily and too quiet to be seen as a threat. Ambassador Yunji looked skeptical. And you think humanity could join this coalition? We're already being courted by 3 major powers. We're not quiet or unnoticed. No, we're not, Guan admitted. If we joined the Free Accord, we would be taking a risk. The major powers might see it as a rejection of their offers, which it is. But the Free Accord representatives I spoke with believe humanity would strengthen their coalition. We have industrial capacity and a growing military that would make the entire group more formidable. She pulled up economic projections. The Free Accord also offers technology sharing without cultural integration. We would gain access to advanced systems developed by 17 different civilizations, all with different approaches to science and engineering. We would learn from them and contribute our own innovations. It sounds like Admiral Daeho's plan, but with allies, Junho observed. Exactly, Juan said. We maintain our independence while gaining partners who respect that independence. It's riskier than the Valorian Alliance, slower than joining the Selveth Federation. But it keeps humanity free to make its own choices. The debate continued for hours. Representatives from every nation and colony spoke their minds. Some supported the Valorian Alliance, seduced by the promise of quick advancement. Others backed the Solvath Confederation as a middle path. Many agreed with Admiral Daeho that complete independence was the only acceptable option. And a growing number saw the Free Accord as humanity's best chance. Arguments grew heated. At one point, 2 council members nearly came to blows before security separated them. The pressure of the decision was breaking down usual diplomatic courtesy. Finally, President Haon called for order. We have heard all perspectives. Now we must vote. But before we do, I want to share something personal. The chamber fell silent. Hyun rarely spoke about her private life. My grandmother was born in a time when my country was not free, she said quietly. It was controlled by another nation that promised prosperity and protection. That nation did bring some economic growth, but it also tried to erase my grandmother's language, her culture, her identity. It took decades of struggle to regain independence. She looked around the chamber. My grandmother told me that a comfortable prison is still a prison, she said. That freedom is not something you can postpone until you're stronger. Either you have it, or you're already on the path to losing it forever. Hyun straightened. I will vote for the Free Accord option, not because it's the safest path, not because it's the easiest, but because it's the only path that lets humanity remain truly human. Whatever we decide today, we must decide for ourselves, not because some empire told us it's for our own good. The vote was called. The results were closer than anyone expected. The Valorian Alliance had strong support from those who prioritized security and rapid development. The Solvath Confederation attracted those who wanted allies without complete integration. Admiral Daeho's isolationist position had a dedicated following who refused to trust any alien power. But in the end, the Free Accord option won by a narrow margin. Humanity would reject all empire offers and join the coalition of independent species. It was the riskiest choice, the hardest path, and the one that demanded the most from humanity itself. As the vote was announced, Giwan felt both relief and dread. They had made their choice. Now they would have to live with the consequences. The diplomatic shuttle carrying Captain Jiwan and her delegation approached the remote mining colony in what the star charts called the Verge. This was neutral space, claimed by no empire and far from any major trade routes. It was the perfect place for a secret meeting. President Heen had chosen Jiwan to lead the delegation meeting with the Free Accord representatives. Alongside her were General Junho, Admiral Daeho, and Mira. They represented the military, strategic, and intelligence perspectives humanity would need in any negotiation. The mining colony was a rough place, built into an asteroid rich in rare minerals. Ships from dozens of species docked at its ports, and the corridors were crowded with traders and workers. No one paid much attention for humans in civilian clothes. That was exactly what they wanted. They found the meeting room in a quiet section of the colony. Inside waited 3 aliens unlike any Guan had seen before. One was short and covered in crystalline formations that glowed faintly. Another looked almost like a floating jellyfish, with long tentacles that moved in patterns. The third was humanoid, but with 6 limbs and skin that shifted colors constantly. The crystalline one spoke first, its voice coming through a translator. I am Urchan of the Silex people. Welcome to the Free Accord. I am Captain G1 of Earth. Thank you for meeting with us. The floating jellyfish pulsed with light. I am Tila of the Vornis. We have been watching humanity with great interest. You are in a difficult position. That's an understatement, Admiral Deho said. 3 major powers want us to join them, and we're leaning toward refusing all of them. That's going to make enemies. The 6-limbed alien skin flashed through several colors. I am Ixile of the Chromata. Yes, you will make enemies. The Valorians do not accept rejection gracefully, neither do the Kryn or the Solveth, though they are more patient about it. But you've survived without joining them, Juan said. How? Ren's crystalline body rang like chimes. By understanding what the empires truly want, they want to expand their power, but they also want to minimize costs. Conquering a free accord. Member would be possible for any of them, but it would cost ships, resources, and most importantly, reputation. Other species would see them as aggressors. That makes conquest less attractive than leaving us alone. Tila's tentacles waved. We also maintain strict neutrality. We do not take sides in their conflicts. We trade with all of them, but favor none. This makes us useful to everyone and threatening to no one, except as an example, Mira said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. You're an example that species can survive without joining an empire. That's why the empires don't advertise your existence. You prove there's another way. Ixel's skin turned a deep blue that Jiwan's translator indicated was approval. The human is perceptive. Yes, we are a threat to the Empire's narrative that small species need their protection. But we are a small enough threat that they tolerate us. Would humanity be a small enough threat? Junho asked. We're more visible than you are. The major powers have already made us offers. If we refuse them all to join you instead, won't that provoke a response? The 3 Free Accord representatives looked at each other in whatever passed for communication among such different species. Finally, Rachan spoke. There is risk. The Valorians in particular may see your refusal as an insult. They invested significant diplomatic resources in courting humanity. They expected you to accept. What kind of response are we talking about? Deho pressed. Economic sanctions? Military pressure? Both are possible, Tila said. The Valorians may blockade your colonies or restrict your access to trade routes. They may fund pirate groups to raid your shipping. They will try to make independence so painful that you reconsider your decision. Juan felt her stomach tighten. The Free Accord would help us resist this pressure. Yes, Ixel said simply. That is the purpose of our coalition. When any member faces aggression, we all respond. We would provide you with advanced defensive technology, military advisors, and economic support. If the Valorians blockade your colonies, Free Accord ships would help you break that blockade. Why? Giwan asked. What do you gain from helping us? Ren's chimes rang again. Humanity is different from other species we have recruited. We have larger population and industrial capacity than most of us. You also have something else, something the empires have noticed. You have a stubborn streak. Refusal to accept that bigger powers always win. You think we're crazy? Deho said with a slight smile. I think you might be strong enough to change the balance, Tila replied. The Free Accord has survived by being small and quiet. With humanity as a member, we could be something more. Not an empire ourselves, but a real alternative. A proof that cooperation between equals works better than submission to superiors. They talked for hours, going over details of what membership in the Free Accord would require. Humanity would need to contribute to mutual defense funds. They would need to share certain technologies. They would need to maintain neutrality in conflicts between the empires. Most importantly, they would need to rapidly build up their military strength so they could actually contribute to collective defense. Admiral Deho pointed out that this last requirement aligned with his own proposal. We would be doing what I suggested anyway, but with allies backing us up. Exactly, Exile confirmed. The Free Accord is not a shortcut to safety. It is a hard path with support. You will still need to be strong, but you won't be alone. As the meeting concluded, Jiwan felt cautiously optimistic. The free accord wasn't perfect, but it seemed genuine. These species had maintained their independence for generations without becoming empires themselves. That counted for something. The delegation returned to their shuttle and began the journey back to Earth. They were halfway home when the emergency communication came through. Mira took the call, and her face went pale. "Captain, we have a problem. The Valorians have moved their fleet into Earth's orbit. They're not leaving." President Heian appeared on the screen, broadcasting from the Emergency Command Center under Geneva. "Captain Jiwan, we have a situation." Ambassador Velkris delivered an ultimatum. "Humanity has 48 hours to accept the Valorian alliance, or they will take action to protect their interests." "What kind of action?" Junho demanded. They didn't specify. But their fleet is in position to blockade Earth itself. And our intelligence reports that Kryn ships are moving into position near our outer colonies. The Solvath are also repositioning their force. All three empires are making their move. Deho cursed under his breath. "They're not giving us a choice. They're forcing our hand." "Maybe," Giwan said slowly, "or maybe they're showing us why we need to reject them. This is what they do. They offer friendship and threaten violence when you don't accept. If we give in now, we'll never be free of them." You nodded. "I agree, but we need to be ready for the consequences. Admiral Deho, I'm putting you in command of Earth's defense forces. Captain Juan, I want you to coordinate with the Free Accord. If we're going to make this stand, we need their support." The next 48 hours were the most tense in human history. The Valorian fleet hung above Earth like a sword ready to fall. On the surface, people protested, some demanding that the government accept the alliance to avoid conflict, others insisting that humanity must stand firm. The United Earth Council held emergency sessions around the clock. The debate raged again, but this time under the shadow of immediate threat. Some council members argued that the Valorian ultimatum proved they couldn't be trusted. Others said it proved humanity wasn't strong enough to refuse them. G1 worked frantically to coordinate with the Free Accord. Rachin, Tila, and Ixal arranged for their species' ships to move toward human space. It would take days for them to arrive. Knowing they were coming gave Earth's hope. Admiral Deho prepared Earth's defense forces. Every ship humanity had was put on alert. Orbital defense platforms powered up their weapons. Ground-based missile systems targeted the Valorian fleet. It wouldn't be enough to defeat them, but it would make any attack costly. As the deadline approached, President Heian prepared to address both Earth and the galaxy. The speech would be broadcast everywhere, ensuring that every species would hear humanity's response. Juan stood in the command center, watching the countdown timer. 48 hours had seemed like a long time when the ultimatum was delivered. Now it felt like seconds. The timer hit 0. President Heian appeared on every screen across Earth and its colonies. She stood alone at the podium, no advisors or guards visible. Just one human representing all of humanity. To the Valorian Collective, the Kryn Dominion, the Solvath Federation, and all species of the galaxy, humanity delivers its answer. We appreciate the offers we have received. We recognize that each empire believes its path is the right one. But we must respectfully decline all of them. Her voice was steady, showing no fear. Humanity chooses independence. We will join the Free Accord, a coalition of species that maintain their sovereignty while cooperating on common challenges. We will build our own strength, make our own decisions, and face our own consequences. She paused, letting her words echo. To the Valorians specifically, we understand you may view our refusal as an insult. It is not. We respect your civilization and hope to maintain friendly relations. But we will not submit to anyone, no matter how powerful. We will not trade our freedom for security. Jan's expression hardened. If any species chooses to attack humanity because of this decision, you will find us ready to defend ourselves. We may not have the largest fleet or the most advanced weapons, but we have something more important. We have the will to remain free, and we will fight to preserve that freedom for as long as necessary. She concluded simply, "Humanity has spoken. We stand independent. We stand with the free accord. We stand ready for whatever comes next." The transmission ended. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Valorian fleet remained in orbit. Earth's defense forces stayed on alert. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, the Valorian ships began to withdraw. Not all at once, but one by one. They pulled back from Earth's orbit and moved to the edge of the solar system. Ambassador Velcris sent one final message. Humanity has made its choice. The Valorian collective respects that choice, though we believe it to be unwise. We hope you survive the consequences. As the last Valorian ship left Earth's space, people across the planet erupted in celebration. They had faced down an empire and refused to blink. Humanity was still free, but Giwan didn't celebrate. She watched the retreating ships and wondered what would come next. The Valorians had backed down for now, but they wouldn't forget this rejection. Somewhere in the galaxy, plans were already being made to test humanity's resolve. The real challenge was just beginning. 3 months after humanity rejected the Empire offers, the real test came. Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiant, watching the tactical display with growing concern. 12 Valorian warships had established a blockade around Kepler Station, humanity's most distant colony in the outer systems. The message from the Valorians was polite but clear. They claimed the blockade was for humanity's protection, responding to increased pirate activity in the region. But everyone knew the truth. This was punishment for refusing their alliance. This was a test to see if humanity would fold. Kepler Station held 15,000 colonists and served as a critical mining operation. Without its resources, Earth's shipbuilding program would slow dramatically. The Valorians knew this, which was exactly why they had chosen it. "Status report," Deho ordered. Commander Tai Yang looked up from his console. 8 of our destroyers are in position, along with the Defiant. The Free Accord sent 3 ships, 2 from the Silex and 1 from the Chromata. We're outnumbered but not overwhelmed. Outgunned, though, Deho muttered. Each Valorian warship was more advanced than anything humanity had. In a straight fight, they would lose. So they wouldn't fight straight. Captain Jiwan was commanding one of the destroyer squadrons. Her voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, we're in position. Awaiting your orders." Deho had spent weeks planning for this moment. He knew the Valorians would eventually test humanity's resolve, and he had studied every battle in human history, looking for strategies that let smaller forces defeat larger ones. Guerrilla warfare. Hit-and-run tactics. Making the enemy pay for every inch. "All ships, execute Plan Delta," Deho commanded. "We're not here to destroy them. We're here to make this blockade too expensive to maintain." The human and Free Accord ships spread out, taking positions around the Valorian blockade. They didn't attack directly. Instead, they launched waves of sensor drones that interfered with Valorian scanning systems. They deployed mines that forced the Valorian ships to constantly adjust their positions. They made high-speed passes that kept the enemy on alert but never quite crossing into open combat. The Valorian commander, a veteran officer named Korthon, watched the human tactics with growing frustration. The humans were like insects buzzing around his ships, never staying still long enough to swat, but constantly annoying. His orders had been clear. Maintain the blockade, but avoid starting a war. But the humans were making it impossible to do the first without risking the second. Days turned into weeks. The blockade held, but the cost kept rising. Valorian ships needed constant repairs from the mine damage. Their crews were exhausted from being on constant alert. Supply lines stretched thin as they tried to maintain 12 warships in hostile territory. Meanwhile, Juan coordinated with the Free Accord ships. The Silex vessels had powerful defensive shields that protected the smaller human ships during their raids. The Chromata ship used advanced stealth technology to plant mines in unexpected places. Together, they created a constant threat that the Valorians couldn't eliminate. On the 32nd day of the blockade, Korthon received new orders from the Valorian High Command. The message was simple. The blockade was costing too much for too little gain. He was authorized to withdraw, but Korthon was a proud warrior. He sent one final message to Admiral Deho. "You have won this round, human, but not through strength, through annoyance and tricks. Is this how your species fights?" Deho's response was broadcast openly so everyone could hear. "We fight however we need to fight. You chose to blockade our people. We chose to make you regret it. If that bothers your sense of honor, maybe don't start conflicts you're not willing to finish." The Valorian ships withdrew, and Kepler Station was free. The victory sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Humanity had faced a major power and survived. More than that, they had made the cost of aggression too high to justify. News of the battle spread quickly. Other Free Accord members took note of humanity's tactics and began adapting them for their own defenses. The empires took note too, but for different reasons. Humanity was proving to be more trouble than expected. President Hayun addressed the United Earth Council in the aftermath. "We won this battle, but the war for our independence is just beginning. The Valorians will try again, more carefully next time. So will the others. We need to accelerate our defense program and strengthen our ties with the Free Accord." The months that followed were a blur of construction and preparation. Shipyards across human space worked around the clock building new vessels. The Free Accord shared advanced defensive technologies that humans adapted to their own designs. Military academies trained officers in the tactics that had worked at. Kepler Station. Captain Jiwan was promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's new rapid response fleet. Her mission was to be ready for the next crisis, wherever and whenever it came. Mira became head of Earth's INTI. Our Stellar Intelligence Service is tasked with watching the empires for signs of future threats, but not everything was about military preparation. The Free Accord welcomed humanity officially, and with that came cultural exchange. Human scientists worked alongside Silex researchers studying advanced materials. Human artists collaborated with chromata musicians, discovering that music was a universal language even between species that heard different frequencies. 1 year after rejecting the Empire offers, Giwan stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Independence. It was the first ship designed entirely by humans using a combination of Earth technology and Free Accord innovations. It wasn't the most powerful ship in the galaxy, but it was theirs, and that mattered. She received a communication from an unexpected source. Ambassador Velcris, the Valorian, who had first offered humanity alliance, wanted to speak with her privately. G1 accepted the call, curious what the alien wanted. Velcris appeared on her screen, but he looked different. Older, tired. He was no longer wearing the elaborate robes of an active ambassador. Admiral Juwan, Velcris said, "Congratulations on your promotion and on your species' success." "Thank you, G1," replied cautiously. "What can I do for you, Ambassador?" "I am no longer an ambassador. I was relieved of my position after the Kepler Station incident. The Valorian High Command felt I had mishandled humanity's recruitment." He made that gesture that might have been a smile. "They were right, in a way. I did mishandle it. I assumed you would be like the others." "What others?" "Every species we have recruited in the last century. They all said yes eventually. Some immediately, others after we applied pressure. But they all accepted because they were afraid. Afraid of being alone in a dangerous galaxy?" Velcris leaned forward. "I did not understand that humans can be afraid and still say no. That you can acknowledge you are weaker and still refuse to submit." Juwan studied the alien carefully. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I am old now and my career is over. I have time to think about the path my civilization has chosen. We became an empire by convincing species they needed us. But what if we were wrong? What if the Free Accord's way is better? Are you having a crisis of conscience?" "Perhaps." Velcris was quiet for a moment. 3 species have left the Valorian sphere since humanity made its choice. They watched you face us down and decided to follow your example. My people are concerned. You have shown that there is an alternative to submitting to the empires." Guan felt a chill of understanding. "We didn't mean to start a rebellion." "But you did. Not with weapons or propaganda, but simply by existing as an example. that is more dangerous to the empires than any fleet. Velcris made another gesture, one G1's translator identified as respect. I wanted you to know that some of us understand what you have accomplished. You saved more than just humanity. You saved the possibility that species can be truly free. The transmission ended, leaving Giwan alone with her thoughts. She looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that humanity was only beginning to explore. They had made enemies by choosing independence. But they had also made friends. Real friends, based on mutual respect rather than power dynamics. 10 years passed. Admiral Juan, now a fleet commander with significant experience, led joint exercises with Free Accord partners. The coalition had grown to 23 member species, with 3 more petitioning to join. Humanity's fleet was now one of the largest in the Free Accord, though still modest by Empire standards. The Valorian collective had declined significantly. The loss of several client species weakened their economy and military. The Kryn Dominion remained powerful, but had shifted their attention to a conflict with the Solvoff Federation in a distant sector. The galaxy's power balance was changing, and the empires no longer seemed quite so invincible. Earth had changed too. What had once been a species barely venturing beyond its solar system was now a confident spacefaring civilization. Why'd I go when low I will I like why and I like or whistle I want inside way that why ran I saw why what's so loud I want to word so it was Human technology had advanced rapidly. Combining their own innovations with lessons learned from Free Accord partners, but most importantly, humanity had kept its independence. Children growing up on Earth, its colonies learned that their ancestors had faced the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy and said no. They learned that freedom was worth fighting for, that being small didn't mean being weak, and that stubborn determination could achieve what raw power could not. G1 stood on the bridge of the Independence. Now, an older and more advanced version of the ship she had commanded a decade ago. She was reviewing reports when a communication came through from President Hyun. Still in office after multiple re-elections. Admiral Juwan, we've received an interesting request. The Teclan people, one of the species that left the Valorian sphere, have asked to join the Free Accord. They want humanity to sponsor their membership. Juwan remembered the Teclan from Mira's early research. They had been the Valorians' allies for 50 years before watching humanity's example and choosing to leave. What do we know about their current situation? They're struggling. The Valorians cut off their trade access and are pressuring their neighbors to isolate them. The Teclan thought independence would be simple after seeing us succeed. They're learning it's not. But they're still trying, Juwan said. That counts for something. I recommend we support their application and send some ships to help them resist Valorian pressure. I was hoping you'd say that. You'll be leading the support fleet personally. Show them what humanity learned, so they don't have to learn it the hard way. As Jiwon prepared for the mission, she thought about how far humanity had come. They had started as one small species being courted by empires. Now they were helping others find their own path to freedom. They hadn't become an empire themselves. They had become something better, proof that a different way was possible. She pulled up a star chart showing human space, Free Accord territories, and the locations of the 3 major empires. The galaxy was still dominated by those empires, but the spaces between them were growing. The Free Accord was expanding not through conquest, but through choice. As more species decided that independence was worth the struggle, Guan remembered the day. The Valorian fleet first appeared above Earth. offering their alliance with smooth words and veiled threats. She remembered the fear, the doubt, the desperate debates about what humanity should do. Most of all, she remembered President Han's grandmother's words. A comfortable prison is still a prison. Humanity had chosen freedom over comfort. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy. Not through force, but through example. They proved that small species could survive without becoming parts of empires. They proved that cooperation between equals was possible. They proved that sometimes the hardest path was the right one. The Independence and its escort fleet departed Earth, heading toward Techland space. As they jumped to faster-than-light travel, Giwan looked back at the blue planet that had given birth to humanity. It was small in the vastness of space, just as humanity was small in the vastness of the galaxy. But size, they had learned, was not what mattered. What mattered was the courage to decide your own fate, the strength to defend that decision, and the wisdom to help others do the same. Humanity had all three, and that made them greater than any empire. The stars beckoned, full of challenges and opportunities. Humanity was ready for both, walking among them as a free people, beholden to none, allied with those who shared their values. It was exactly what they had fought for, and exactly what they would continue to defend for as long as humans sailed the stars.